Good morning, everybody. Live and with you first thing in the morning. It's getting colder and colder and colder. I sounded like Krusty the Clown there.
Do you know that they have got all 33 seasons?
Hang on. I can't hear you. Let me turn this down. What's that?
Do you know that they've got all 33 seasons of The Simpsons on Disney, I think, on one of the platforms? 33 seasons.
I had a discussion with Lebang on Tuesday about these bloody platforms that we all need to be subscribed to, and she's got 5 of them. So she's got Amazon Prime, Disney Plus, Netflix, Showmax, and one other one. I can't even remember what the other one was. I think it was BritBox.
No,
she's got all of them, and she said some of them she's paying for, some of them she's got someone else's logins, but
some of them you a tenant, some of them you pay.
So yesterday, Disney Plus puts up this thing. They're like, "Ooh, you don't want to miss this big news! Episodes 1 to 6 of The Kardashians now streaming on Disney Plus South Africa." So I'm like, "Wait, I thought they wanted us to subscribe, not to cancel." What's going on here, you know? Anyway,
all I'm saying,
about
that is I don't know why these guys haven't learned that we love it. Why they haven't moved into the future where Netflix is, right? That we love it when all the episodes are uploaded at the same time.
Yeah.
We're in the future now. We can't go back to watching episode by episode, week by week. Like what? Now I have to wait for 4 weeks in a row before I can start watching anything.
What are we, fucking animals? Give us what we want.
Is this the 80s?
Exactly.
Is this the 80s? Remember when that was a thing, when you actually had to wait?
It wasn't even that long ago, Pumi. It was the 2000s. Don't date us that much. It wasn't the 80s. In the 2000s, you had to wait to watch your favorite show. In fact, I remember people being angry because Game of Thrones was released weekly. Remember?
Right.
That's not that long ago.
All
right, so
makes me so mad.
I don't want to waste any time. Pumi's got the most fantastic story. First of all, she says she nearly died. Second of all, there's a bit of a story of a hero in this as well. So over to you. This is probably my favorite story of the week. I saw it on Facebook. That's how I know about it. But now it's time you share it with all of us.
Listen, guys. So on Friday last week, I had to travel to Giyani. If any of you know, Giyani is 5 hours away from Joburg, way up north, because
Limpopo.
we were going to in Limpopo, because we were going to an event on Saturday, and we thought, so we drove to Giyani. The event was on Saturday morning.
Right.
So I thought, when we're in Giyani, we will have arrived and it won't take us too long. On Saturday morning, we follow Waze, and those of you who follow Waze would know this, right? If Waze can, it will take you through the people's bank loan to get somewhere. You know this, right?
Whichever way is quicker, even if it's if it's through across a volcano, it'll take you that way. If that's the fastest way, it'll take you there. Right.
So on Saturday morning, getting ready to go to the event, we put in the village that we're going to. It's 78 kilometers away. So, 78 kilometers away from Giyani, past Malabulele. So now you're on the way to the northern gate of the Kruger. It took us another 2 hours. Every village in Limpopo, through dry up riverbeds, and I said 2 hours to get there. And I was just like, what? Now you're in the middle of nowhere, and don't let the cell phone providers lie to you. They're not everywhere you go, right?
No, they're not.
There are places out there where you have no reception.
Definitely.
Fantastic event. We met the Tonga chief and all sorts of wonderful people over there. And then on Sunday, I had to drive back through Limpopo, through Mpumalanga to get to KZN because we had a meeting in KZN. Drove for 10 hours. on
This
Sunday.
is you talk about the petrol price, and here's Pumi crossing the country in like 2 days.
It's important work. And this is where my life almost came to an end. So we're driving through every small village, every small town throughout all of these provinces, and my phone fell in the water. So when we travel, I have a cooler box in the back of the car with water and stuff, because you can get to places that have no petrol stations or one-stop shops, and my phone fell in the water. It is at this moment that I saw my life flash before my eyes. Because I have all these pictures from Saturday and everything, but because of no network and reception, my iCloud is not...
Right. So if you can't get them back, they're gone. Gone. Waste of everything.
And what about all of that social media content that I was out there creating? I really did see, but also my phone is my work. I email off my phone. I social media off my phone. I watch Netflix off my phone. My phone is the center of my life.
Right. I mean,
so now,
yeah, many of us can relate to that, Pums. I think so many of us who have, if we don't have our phone with us, we feel naked.
Also, this is Sunday, kind of mid-morning, that my phone fell in the water. So now I have no ways.
So you don't even know which way to go now. And are you on your own?
No, thank God. No.
Okay. Sure, because of
and I don't have my drive time playlist.
Oh, even worse. My God.
Do you see how my life almost ended?
This is a terrible, terrible story. You're depressing us first thing on a Thursday morning.
But wait, there's more.
Hold your phone closely and appreciate it while it's still there.
Listen, clutch it close and just press the update on your iCloud.
Absolutely.
So now I'm in, get to KZN, get to a village outside Dundee. You've heard this story before.
Yes.
Village outside Dundee. There's no reception. Doesn't matter. I have no phone. I also have no way of making sure that my child's weekend was all right, that he got back to school on time, all of that stuff. I'm just trusting the Lord at this point in my life.
All right.
I see Silver now saying newer phones are water resistant. Yes, this is true. Water resistant, not waterproof.
There's a difference. Yeah.
That's what I learned. Water resistant means it can get a splash of water on it, but if it is submersed in water, it is fucked. This is what I learned.
Oh my God! All right, so please.
So I eventually got back to Joburg on Monday night. On Tuesday, so on Tuesday, I am in desperate need of somebody that can either retrieve my pictures or retrieve all my data, my WhatsApps, my everything. And I don't care. I don't care if the phone doesn't work anymore, if it can't work anymore. But oh my God, guys.
You need these pictures.
I need these pictures.
Right.
And I was saved by Bilal at the Oriental Plaza.
All right. So who is Bilal? I mean, this guy's the hero that I was talking about. Because you put a picture of him up on your Facebook. He works at the Oriental Plaza, and he has
a stall. He has a stall. There's lots of stalls of people who fix phones and whatever, and he has fixed a screen for me before, so I know that he knows. But I the screen is not the problem here. I just need my data, so I get them can you do a data recovery? They're like, no, data recovery, no, we can't do that, sister. Really? God. You know what happened? My phone fell in the water. It's oh, water damage. I can help you with that.
So what did he do?
He opened it up. He, with a hand fan or something, dried up the inside of the phone, changed the battery, changed the screen. Hallelujah.
You're kidding me.
Hallelujah. Everything is back.
Oh my God, how fantastic.
All my pictures, everything is back.
Pums, that is...
And I could make phone calls. So,
what a happy What a happy story.
New
See,
screen, everything. Yo,
I'm very pleased. What a
yo.
great story. Now, Bilal is obviously not from here. That's not a local name. So he's from where?
So I asked him. I asked him where he's from. Also because I'd never heard him. I've always heard him. He also works with, I think they're Pakistani, the guys that he works with. And I've heard him speak what Pakistanis that they speak. So and the guy came and he spoke to this guy in Zulu. So I was like, how? And then Bilal is from Gweru. And Gweru is, he's Zimbabwean. Gweru is between Bulawayo and Harare.
Oh, wow.
For those of you who know your history, right? Bulawayo is historically where the Ndebele people, most of the Ndebele people come from that area. And Harare is where a lot of Shona people come from. So there is also a tension in Zimbabwe. There's a tension still to this day between Shona and Ndebele people.
Mm-hmm.
And he is actually Shona, but he speaks Ndebele and 6 other African languages, including Pakistani.
That's amazing. Thank God we have. Now, this is the kind of skilled professional that at that point, at that point, you would have paid any amount of money, right? You would have paid
anything.
2 new cell phones.
And here is the kicker. Yeah. It cost me 1,000 rand.
Oh, what a winner. Listen.
Less than a tank of petrol.
There are some very, very talented people in this world. You have to be prepared to go to places like Fordsburg in the Oriental Plaza to find them. But that's good. That is so, so good. Lucky says there's nothing Bilal can't fix. That's right.
If I tell you he saved my life, y'all, at least saved my social life and my work life.
Carl says, I just French kissed my phone. I take it for granted, man. Oh, yes. Yeah. But listen, at that moment, Pums, there is no amount of money you wouldn't pay to get your data back, to get your phone back. Nothing.
You know, I actually couldn't sleep on Sunday night. I just remember at like 2 a.m, actually like pacing around the house, thinking about my phone, and just couldn't sleep.
Yeah.
Couldn't sleep on Sunday night, couldn't sleep on Monday night. I was that distressed. And I'm just like, I actually cannot believe that they're trying to get us all into the metaverse. How, like 2 days without a phone and I almost died. Imagine now if everything else is on the metaverse. We're going to be
even more screwed. You've got to have a real world that you can actually carry on living a life in, and then you have to have that virtual world. But I do get it. I mean, if I lost this thing, we were talking just the other day about exactly this. I think it was one of the shows you weren't on, and we were saying just back your shit up every single day. Just have it automatically backing up, because if you don't, you're going to be in big trouble. And you never know. I mean, yours was water damaged, and thank God they could sort it out. Sometimes they get damaged worse. Sometimes they get stolen. You never see them again. You've got to keep this stuff as a priority, right?
Amir is calling me to order because I said Pakistani. I know there's no such language as Pakistani. Lighten up.
Yeah. We can't remember. We can't even remember our 12 official languages. So let's just ease up on, it's Urdu, I think, that he was speaking. That's what Amir says. Okay, Congo Chris says, what you're describing is call screen separation anxiety, sis Pumi. Yeah.
I had it, guys. I had it.
Yeah. Listen to this. Tracy says, our 4x4 once got a bad knock on the underparts. That sounds rude. Took it to the dealership, and initially the repair costs were running into the tens of thousands. The main mechanic comes in, has a look, giggles, gets a hammer, knocks it, and said, it's fixed, no charge.
No.
Yes. This happens.
And that is the best feeling. The best feeling when you think it's worse than and you're just dreading the cost of fixing whatever.
Well,
and you get that is the best feeling, Tracy.
Speaking of hammers and things, so yesterday I went for my 6-monthly dentist checkup, right? And my old dentist, shame, she died of COVID, so I had to find a new dentist.
Oi.
So the last time I saw her was probably middle of last year, so I was actually a bit late. So I thought, I went in to see this new dentist yesterday. She's very sweet, very
And you
professional.
loved your dentist.
Oh, shame, she was amazing. She'd been our family dentist from when I was 20 something, so maybe even younger. So I arrived there, nervous because I've never liked the dentist. And she puts me down in the chair and she takes a whole bunch of x-rays so she can see that everything looks all right. And she says, no, your mouth's okay. There's nothing wrong with anything here. There's just this one tooth which I'm not happy about. So we're going to have to do a filling. So I said, oh, okay. Cool. Let's, I'm like, okay, grin and bear it. Just get on with it. So she's going to do a cleaning, which they always do. They do that proper oral hygiene thing. So while she's doing that, the anesthetic's starting to set in on this tooth on this side. And then she does it. She gets those and those and those ones going. And then
That last one is my worst one.
The very high-pitched one?
Yeah.
Oh, no, I don't mind that one. The one I hate is the one that sounds like a giant, sounds like one of those things that you would use for deep iron ore mining. There's and it grinds down on the, that's the one I can't stand. Anyway, it was painless. I have to tell you, it was I don't know if this is the right terminology, but it was the best dentist experience that I've had. So I had a really good time. It was fantastic. It was fun. It was.
There's something you don't hear often. I had a really good time at the dentist.
Yeah, I mean, as much as it was possible to. This woman's so professional. And I said to her, you guys have a hard time because people just hate the dentist. And she said, yeah, but, I love doing this and I love helping people. And I thought it's so unfair because we all have some issue with the dentist, right? I mean,
it's actually because of all those sounds. The sounds make it worse than what it is.
Yeah.
And years ago, I found a really great dentist for Kanejo when he was young, who had earphones for them and had a screen mounted up. So when you're lying in the chair, the screen is mounted up here and had like Nickelodeon.
Oh, wow. Okay. That's clever. That's so clever.
And just listening to Nickelodeon, it was very when he was a little person, he used to go to that dentist.
This woman had this very fancy chair with a little basin right next to it, and it's like very, very 21st century. So I think maybe the dentist I had before was kind of stuck in the past. Maybe. I don't know. It was terrific. So Beth says the dentist sound triggers PTSD in me. Yep. Yep.
True story.
Fuck that drill, says Nico. It makes your whole head shake. Oh, yes. Was your dentist one of Bilal's wives? I don't know, but Bilal's a hero.
Listen, y'all, Bilal is a hero. And when I said to him, Bilal, I'm going to take a picture of you. I'm going to put it on my social media because I need to big you up, man, on a bigger platform. People must know what you've done here.
Pumi, you've got to make people heroes. That's why we're talking about him this morning. So Eben says, I still think you have to be a special kind of person to want to stare into someone's mouth all day long. Yeah. And Gavin brings up, Gavin says, was she hot? Definitely makes it easier. No, you don't want a hot dentist. If you have a hot dentist, then you're super aware of your mouth and you know that she's seen where you've got problems or where you're 100%. No, you don't want a hot person looking in your mouth. I mean, she wasn't horrible looking, but she wasn't I wasn't going, ooh, she's attractive. I'm really glad to be here.
I think Eben needs to know that there are all sorts of other specialists who look up other orifices all day.
Oh, well, that's got to be the worst, right? There are dentists who have TVs on the ceiling, so you can watch TV while they're fucking around in there. That's correct. My best dentist experience, says Beth, was the Joburg Gen having students fill my teeth. Oh, you can still feel it. Let's use some more drugs. No extra charges. Ha! Ha! Yonder says, I have the opposite. Listen to this story. My car hooter suddenly stopped, and I just bought the car. First mechanic said he needed to replace 4,000 rands worth of stuff.
No.
And eventually I took it to Hyundai. It turns out there was just some dust, no charge. Yeah.
I hope you never ever went back to that mechanic.
You know, you got to ask for a second opinion. Like in medicine, you have to ask for a second opinion, right?
Yeah, because sometimes people who know how to do things do take advantage.
Mm-hmm.
They do take advantage of you.
Yeah.
They know it's like
There's
nothing.
no
And
two ways about it. They see an opportunity and they take it. I mean, even good people, right?
I don't know if it's good people.
Some of them aren't necessarily like the worst people. But
you can't be a good person if you're willing to take an unsuspecting, unknowing person for a ride. 4,000 rand. Imagine that.
No, sure.
That's
but,
what,
I mean, it's also
1.5 tanks of petrol.
That's why I'm always a bit suspicious of the insurance companies. And I'm not just having a go at them, but they have their process and people fill in the paperwork and then money changes hands. And it's all just so like there's such a procedure and it's by rote. And they don't really bother to differentiate between this little detail and that little detail. It's like, 4 grand, 20 grand, 100 grand, whatever. It's just process these people. You know what I mean?
I know, but still.
So I thought this was quite funny when they were reporting the Gupta story on one of the news sites this week, which we'll talk about in the Burning Platform later. They took this picture of Rajesh Gupta and they say photo credit Gareth Cliff's Twitter. So I love that. So I'm really like blown away that they actually gave me credit. I don't know which site this is. It's I think it's an Indian news site. So nice of them to do that for us. Don't you think that's great? I'm more proud of that. I'm more proud of this than I am of starting podcasting in South Africa.
Gareth Cliff's Twitter.
Yeah, photo credit for the Rajesh Gupta.
You made it.
I'm all for. I'm here for it. I'll take that one. What you like? That's one of my highlights of my career. When people say, "What have you done in the world?" You know, when they put, "What are you going to put in your tombstone?" I'd like to say that picture that was used by an Indian news agency of Rajesh Gupta. They credited me. They said Gareth Cliff's Twitter is where we go.
This is an Indian news agency?
Yes, I think so.
Surely they could have gotten like Rajesh's like ID picture from when he was 18 years old out of the archives.
I am now officially a news source. I've never been credited as a photographer or a news source before. I'm delighted. Are you kidding me? I was thrilled. You want to make me happy? That's all it takes. Not a lot. I'm a very easy man to please. And then I loved this. Someone put this picture of Amber Heard up. And I know we're finished with Amber Heard and Johnny Depp, but look at this.
Oh, no, man.
Poor wife. Yeah. Read that with the accent. Pumi, try the accent.
I can hear it in my head. I can hear it in my head.
Come on, do it. I want to hear you do it.
No, I can hear it in my head, but I really can't. On God, I can't.
All right. I dead ass did not shit the bed, fam. There's a motherfucker I left out there. I dead ass did not shit the motherfucking bed, fam. On God, your honor. Right? That's the hairstyle she's got to have. Now I will never be able to unsee this. And by the way, I see a lot of Johnny Depp fans. I promise you this is the last time we'll talk about this case. I see a lot of Johnny Depp fans and they're calling him a victory as a victory against the Me Too thing and all the rest of it. I don't think you must attribute too much to this. These are two shitty examples of human beings. And it does not necessarily mean that we must stop listening to women's stories or consider every woman a liar like Amber Heard. Obviously, that would be a very, very bad, stupid mistake. But there are a whole lot of people on the other side of the spectrum saying, oh, Johnny Depp is actually an enemy of women and we don't believe him and we're calling him Johnny Derp and Johnny Perp and all of these things. That's childish as hell. And to me, the only thing that sticks after all of this is please, dear God, no more Pirates of the Caribbean movies. Please, Disney, do not go back on this. We do not want another Pirates of the Caribbean. Don't fall into this trap. Don't listen to a bunch of people who won't even go and see your movie because they're retweeting, they're Instagramming, they're sending memes, but they don't care about your movie, and neither do we. We don't want any more. Please, no more of that. Number one. Number two.
You can watch all the Pirates of the Caribbean movies on Disney Plus.
Oh, just spare me. That's another reason not to get that fucking channel. Second thing, she's no longer Amber Heard. We have to call her Amber Turd, and we will never, ever forget. Whenever you see her, you must always think of her shitting in the bed. That is the only thing that matters. Everything else.
I don't think I can recognize her. I don't think I'll recognize her outside because I've said this.
Even with a new hairstyle?
I will not recognize this face. It's such a nowhere face. If I saw her in another tabloid, I would not know who this is. I can't even think what movies she's in. I will not recognize this woman.
Embarrassing confession. Before the trial, I don't know that I would have recognized her. I really didn't. I wasn't paying attention. I'm not a big Marvel movie fan, so even though I've seen some of them, I don't know what role she had in that Aquaman or whatever.
She was in Aquaman?
Exactly. I mean, I knew the name. But
I did not.
Yeah. Anyone who knows stuff, please let us know. I mean,
listen, I did not recognize her, and I live with the epicenter of Marvel fandom. I live with the 14-year-old boy, and I did not recognize her.
Yeah, well, if you don't, then I don't feel so bad that I don't. EP47, he says, I was having dinner during the week, and I heard a woman made a comment saying that the whole court case is a lie and that their marriage was never mutual. I don't know what that means, because there was always a power imbalance. These are these people who attribute everything in the world to a power imbalance. They see the world only in power. Usually they're on the left of the political spectrum, and to them, everything is about power relations. So people don't even have normal relationships, according to someone who talks like that. It's all about power. And if there's a power imbalance, then it's all about a victim and a perpetrator, which is just crazy. Oh, Congo Chris says it's DC, not Marvel, Gareth. How dare you?
Oh, wow. Sorry, Chris.
Oh, my God. Anyway. There's so much more to dissect from this, but I'm all Amber Hearded and Johnny.
There is not. There is nothing more to dissect from this.
Carl says, I'm going to hang myself if we hear any more about fucking Johnny Depp. I'm with you. Carl, you've got a very foul mouth. If you don't swear in a comment, I don't know if it's even you. Jabula says, Gareth is now getting the recognition he deserves, of course, from India. Yes, thank you, my Indian brothers and sisters. Thank you. There we go. Sanela says, Gareth, you know that picture credit makes you a true economic freedom fighter. Yes. Absolutely.
Jan, how?
I'll take it. Pumi, you know what? These days, it's the little things that get me excited. Really. Pumi, what the fuck are you talking about? Amber is hot. She might be a psycho bedshitter, but she's hot. Okay. If you can look past that, that's fine. Ooh, how about this? Ruv One Architecture says, if Amber and Amy Schumer walked together past you, who would you recognize first? Well, I think, this is tough. I mean, Amber Heard, and I never thought I'd say this, but Amber Heard definitely has the worst personality of the two. But she is much more attractive. And Amy Schumer is very unattractive, horribly unattractive. She's what I would call porcine. She's pig-like.
Man.
Amy Schumer, have you seen her, Pumi?
So
she's porcine.
I'm gonna get cancelled for this.
I don't know which one I'd recognize first. Probably Amy Schumer. I'd recoil instinctively in horror. And it's like if a monster appears in a movie. You go, oh, Jesus. You back off into a corner. Yeah. Maybe that's what'll happen.
But, they both of them very much it's like if there was a stereotypical casting call, right? A woman, certain age, just blonde chick to walk
Mm.
past in the commercial.
Mhm.
These are the girls that show up. There is absolutely, for
Yeah.
me, there's not much there. There's not much character or distinctiveness. I hear you say that she's hot. I'm just saying
I'm not,
she's
you know, I'm not
they're the
attached.
same.
Like, she's not the most, her personality, this is Amber Heard now, is so horrible. Her personality is so gross and off-putting. And watching her lie and act so badly on the stand, it just killed me on the inside. But I think I'd recognize her before I'd recognize Amy Potato Schumer. So anyway, I mean, look, let's leave it for a moment. I think we've had enough discussion around this particular subject. Let's move on.
Listen, we don't have enough time for the news headlines. There's so much going on.
All right, well, we've got to do some of these. So Harvey Weinstein, you thought you'd heard the last of him, right? He's going to be charged with indecent assault in the UK. Apparently 2 counts of indecent assault against a woman in London in the summer of 1996. That was while Princess Diana was still alive. The Crown Prosecution Service authorized the Metropolitan Police to charge the 70-year-old.
I was still at school.
Right. This is how long ago this was. Apparently, between the 31st of July and August 1996, the alleged victim is a woman who's now in her 50s. Rosemary Ainsley, head of the CPS Special Crime Division, said the Crown Prosecution Service reminds all concerned that criminal proceedings against the defendant are active and he has the right to a fair trial. There should be no reporting, commentary, or sharing of information in any way that prejudices the case. So that's all we know. But Harvey Weinstein, he thought his life couldn't get any worse. Now 2 more charges are going to be added. So there's a little bit of for those Harvey Weinstein followers. You have so many people there. This is. Did you see Judge President Bernard Ngwepe? He published a book yesterday. And
yesterday was the launch.
Yes, Judge Zondo was there speaking about Judge Ngwepe. I remember Judge Ngwepe because while I was studying law, he'd just been appointed, I think, Judge President of the North Gauteng or the Transvaal division at that point.
Mm-hmm.
But a great guy. And I remember a lot of people had very good things to say about Judge Ngwepe because he was widely regarded as a very fair and decent man. He was regarded as someone who really applied the law without prejudice. I listened to a little bit of Judge Zondo yesterday. He's really hard to listen to, Pumi. Again, I don't know how you managed to watch so much of the Zondo Commission. But
yeah, he wasn't talking a lot. There were a whole lot of other people yapping there. But you know,
he said something I liked. He said, if someone is your enemy, even if they're your worst enemy, and they say something that is true, you must acknowledge it. And if someone is your friend and they do or say something that is bad, you must deal with it. You must be honest about these things, which I think is maybe a problem we have in South Africa. We think if we like someone, they're forgiven a whole lot of things that they shouldn't be forgiven. And if we don't like someone, we find reasons to find them guilty and to hate them. Do you think that's true?
I do. I think it's unfortunately one of the things that has permeated into our politics, which is what has made them gutter politics. But you know, I have an unpopular opinion about these judges in public platforms. We have this as a society, and not just in South Africa, but in the whole world. We have gotten into this celebrity culture, right? So everybody wants their moment in the sun to shine. And I'm just thinking, judge, presidents, chief justices, all judges, I think that they have the perfect platform on which to make their views heard. And that is through judgments. I don't think that they should be out here being celebrities. I don't want to hear that. I don't want to hear what your view is about people and the right or wrong. I want to see it in your judgments. I want to see the incisiveness of your thinking and application of yourself and the law in judgments. I don't. When they're retired, they can say whatever they want to say. It's like with Mukhweng. right? He's on every podium. No, that's not
Oh yeah. He's
that's not
become a
what I
celebrity.
want. I don't want you to be a celebrity. I want you to be in the judgments. I want you to be
Yeah.
quoted in law. I don't want to
Yes.
see you or hear you other than that,
No,
because
totally
it creates prejudice. But look, because it also creates prejudice, right? So now I'm kind of going, oh, so he thinks you should acknowledge. And so now when I see other judgments, I'm kind of going, how much of that comes to play? You know, how much of that is he now saying this because he said that on this podium, and now he has to play it through in this space? They're not supposed to be celebrities. They sit in their chambers and write judgments.
I agree. I mean, I do think it would be interesting to read Judge Nwepe's book, because now he's no longer a judge, as I understand it.
Mm.
So that's the time, once you've retired from the bench. And remember, being a judge is a lifetime appointment. You can retire when you want to retire. No one's going to come to you and say, "Oh, listen, you're too senile to do this." So it's always welcome when a judge decides for themselves, "Okay, I'm done with this." And I think that certain judges have some great stories to tell after they've left the bench. But before that, just shh. Nobody's asking. We want to read your judgments. We want to take you super seriously. And the more things you say publicly, I know this is a job you and I do, Pumi. The more
Yeah,
opportunities you have to talk publicly, the more likely you are to piss people off, to alienate people, to be pigeonholed into this category or that category, or
absolutely.
it's absolutely unnecessary. I do think this is a very good point that you're making, and it applies uniquely to judges, because
Mm.
we expect to hear from everyone else. We expect to hear from business people. We expect to hear from politicians. We expect to hear from the social and society leaders. But I do think in judgment, that is where you're taken so seriously, and that's where we need to listen to
Yeah, like when I see a media statement from the Office of the Chief Justice, I'm just like, what are you sending media statements out for? Just
Right.
let them
Right.
stew in their own, let them stew in their juices. You don't have to say anything
Yeah.
about it. Because once you have now put out a media statement, what will happen when this matter now comes before you
Right.
in court?
Absolutely. Then suddenly you have basically cut yourself off at the knees.
Hmm.
Yeah, I hear you. All right. Well, those are some of the headlines. We've actually got a few other things. Do you want to go into some others, or do you want to move on?
Yes,
All right.
we have
There's
to.
stuff to talk about. So apparently, Popalatse has defended her work as Joburg mayor following the Twitter spat with Tony Leon. Yeah, someone needs to just get hold of her and say to her, "Listen, honey, you need some direction here." And maybe it's a lack of experience, or maybe it's also that she's trying to be provocative, or she enjoys the social media attention.
I
But
don't know. I don't think that's what happened. You see, this one actually is like the burning platform bleeding into this hour. You know, I saw that. I saw it happen because I had just gotten my phone back. No, I was on my iPad anyway.
you must have been at that point you were news starved, right?
Jesus, I actually turned it off. There were so many things happening. I actually turned it off and thought, listen, there's too much fire happening on here. But you know, I think on both sides, I think Tony Leon really, really should have been more mature than that.
What did they fight about? I don't even know what this is. I haven't read the story.
There was a picture put up saying, and it was the end of a strategic planning session, and Limpopo was closing the strategic planning session, and it was just a picture. I don't know if it was put up by the city of Joburg or whatever, but it just said, you know, executive mayor closing the 2-day strategic planning session. Right. Tony tweeted back, enough strategic planning, just fix the bloody potholes and the lights and the da-da-da-da, right?
Okay.
And Paul responded to say, if you have something that you would like to add about what we should be doing, this is the email address that you can send your concerns to. Right? I think it's right.
Okay, good. All right, I like that. Yeah, all right.
And then another senior DA person, and I'm going to remember his name just now, I think he's also a councillor.
Yes.
then put out a thing saying, Mpho, have a little bit of respect. If it wasn't for people like Tony Leon, you wouldn't even have the job that you have right now.
Really?
Excuse me, what?
Right. Oh, wow. Really?
And that's the crux of it. Now there's a couple of things that this shows us. It shows a lack of discipline within the party, right? Tony Leon is a senior member of the party.
Is he still a member, and is he still he doesn't have any official position in the DA?
He doesn't have to have an official position in the DA. He has enough gravitas to be able to pick up the phone and talk directly to Mpho or whoever else to say, listen, I think you know what I'm saying? He has enough gravitas. And precisely because the retort was, if it hadn't been for Tony Leon and the work that they have done, you wouldn't be where you are, right? It says to me that then Tony Leon has other avenues within which to bitch. He doesn't have to be on Twitter.
Yeah, I hear you. But by the same token, we have Kgalema Motlanthe mouthing off against.
It's all the same. It's all the same. You know, it's all the same.
Thabo Mbeki gets called in sometimes to comment on stuff, and I'm sure that pisses Cyril off no end, because he and Thabo don't have a whole lot of love for each other. Am I right?
But you know where Thabo is called in, it's within party structures. So there's a conference wherever, and
why do we suddenly care about these stupid party structures? Look, I hear you. I agree with you from the point of view that, like, this okay, so
there's a bigger thing.
I read it.
There's a bigger thing.
I was trying to do a job, and some old guy from the previous regime, so to speak, is now is tweeting at her, and I think her response is appropriate. Here's the email address, old man. Send your email here. I agree with that. I think that's great.
But I think there's a bigger thing.
Like, the rest of us don't care about party structures.
But there's a bigger thing. And this is why I'm saying it shows a lack of discipline within themselves as a party, right? And it gives me an opportunity to address. Every other week, we get an email telling me that maybe the voters are naive, maybe the voters aren't thinking clearly, and that's why they're not giving the DA an opportunity. Because I remain of the view that unfortunately the DA is not doing enough to seduce voters over to their side, to convince people that they should be voting for them. And this little spat, which is not the first time that we've seen something similar. This movie, you know, we've seen the script before.
It's like they're sniping at each other.
But what it does is it makes the rest of the people watching from the outside. It says, who, you know, this, I love this English saying, once bitten, twice shy.
Yeah.
And if you understand that the majority of Black voters in South Africa, especially the older ones, have been bitten by white management of the country before. So they are shy. They look at what is potentially white management and they go, these people are going to treat us badly. I'm not going back there, right?
Sure.
And every time the DA creates this kind of storm in a teacup for itself, right? It is saying to a lot of Black voters, if they treat their own kind, this is a Black person within their party who was smart enough, who worked hard enough to rise up all the way to the top, and they treat her like this, and they treated Musi like this, and they called him an experiment, and they treated Lethiwe like this, and they treated Gwen like this, and you're going, who am I? I'm just a little person in a township. These people ain't going to be good to me. This is what is hurting the DA. And that's why I'm saying it shows a lack of discipline on the DA side too. Because the ANC is imploding. This is where you take the chance, and they are scoring own goals.
No, I think you're right. I mean, I think you're right. Although there's also a part of me that agrees with Congo Chris here. He's absolutely right. Enough expensive time-wasting meetings. Fix the damn potholes, Team Tony. Yeah, but what Pumi's saying is it's the style here, not the substance of the argument. I mean, Tony has a point. She, I think, responded very well. Yeah, all right. You know what? Once you dig under the surface, this makes a lot more sense. So if we're going to interrogate it seriously, let's do that. Congo Chris says, also, Helen is still trying to do the same thing. She just needs to retire.
It's true.
Carl wants to argue with these. Pumi, that argument holds no water. The ANC has treated its people like absolute shit for 25 years, and they're not shy yet. Come on.
And to say it holds no water is actually, it's simple and it's easy to say, oh, but that argument, it's not an argument. We see it in the polling stations. We see it in the polling stations, right? Last week we were talking about the voting in the voting in 5 districts, right? Mm-hmm. And we saw it there. The reason why Herman Mashaba is able to surpass in such a short time, to surpass what the DA has done, is because people are looking at the DA and they're going, "Oh, look how they treated Herman." But when Herman was here, he tried to do something. So we will give our vote to Herman. So it's not an argument that I am making. We see it in the numbers.
Observation. All right. We got to move on to something else. This is interesting. To beat load shedding, FNB is moving away from diesel generators and towards lithium-ion batteries to stave off the effects of load shedding. South African businesses are doing everything in their power to minimize the impact of load shedding. For some corporations, that includes turning to renewable energy like solar power. For others, diesel-powered generators have been more affordable, but diesel has its drawbacks. For starters, these generators are becoming much more expensive to run because fuel prices have reached record highs. Burning diesel also emits carbon dioxide, which is a greenhouse gas, blah, 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 blah. So FNB have decided to use UPS, which collects and holds charge from the grid. When the grid's electricity falters, like during load shedding, the energy stored within the UPS's lithium-ion battery is automatically released to power equipment. So well done to FNB for doing this. It's a bit of a PR story for them. So I'm always reluctant to do these because it sounds like they're just trying to say how great they are and innovative, and really all the banks are just trying to outdo each other in terms of being the most innovative bank. But this is a good one, and I think this is clever. And I would suggest, if you can afford it, that all of us start doing a similar thing. And you know what you could do? You could turn off your own electricity for an hour or two every day and use your batteries, because that's also good for the battery, and you use less Eskom, and therefore Eskom make less money out of you, etc., etc. It's a winning, virtuous circle, as opposed to the ugly, non-virtuous circle that we're in with Eskom the rest of the time, right? It's a good one. All right, so a couple of things that we want to get to before the burning platform this morning. We've got to talk about Senzo Meyiwa and this trial. We have to talk about this thing. Please, right, Pumi? I mean, like, we can't let the day go by without talking about this. What on earth is going on here? This is the most complicated trial ever in the whole world. There's been a documentary before we've even had the verdict. There's going to be another documentary, no doubt, maybe even more, maybe a movie afterwards. But this has got to be the first time that someone in South Africa has actually been put on trial for ukupapa, right?
Bona, Gareth.
Ever.
So first we have to explain to people who may not know what ukupapa is. Right. And I tried to find the English word, but I couldn't. But basically, it's about being chacharach. It's about being jachs, as my Afrikaans would say. Ukupapa is just being voor op die wa and being all out there. Right?
Correct. And we're talking about Kelly Khumalo here.
No, it is the neighbor.
I'm stirring on purpose because a lot of people think, it's all Kelly. Kelly did this. She's a witch, etc.
No, and this is the worst thing. You know what? This is the thing that happens here in South Africa. I wonder if it happens in other African countries. But black men in South Africa can't just die on their own. Or if there's something bad happens to them, it's always their woman's fault. It's their wife. It's always their woman's fault. And Kelly is definitely in that category here. Everybody that's hating on her is hating on her because they're like, Kelly is the one who got Senzo killed.
We have to blame
Sis Meki Piri, guys, is the neighbor. She is the neighbor, and the reason she is now accused number 7 is because Uya Papa. Now, I don't know if this happens in the suburbs, But in the hood, in the townships, there's always that one neighbor that's just very forward and always in the indabas of the people.
Yes.
And this is this Maggie Piri in this. So there was, as we all know, there was an incident in the house. There was a scuffle. Senzo got shot. They had been drinking and kind of going crazy and partying or whatever. And when he was taken to the hospital, we don't know if at the time they knew he was dead or not, but they had all rushed off to take him to hospital. Sis Maggie came over and was like, yo, labantuana. Bebe puza kanje. All these beer bottles, and it looked like there was a party there. She was just like, hey, kokan, let's clean up very quickly before people arrive and see what kind of a mess these people, what they were up to. And because of this, she tampered with
evidence,
the crime scene.
Yes. But she's also the kind of busybody. And you know what? This is... there are people in the world who take more responsibility than other people, even places where they shouldn't.
Dude.
And this woman is exactly the example of that. She got involved in something. It wasn't her business.
She wasn't there. She wasn't in the house. She was just came through. She was like, woo, this mess. Let's quickly clean up before people get here. What? Mess with the crime scene. And now here she is, accused number 7. In the second docket. Now, there's so many things going on with this trial. There are 2 dockets. So there's clearly, we don't know if there's going to be a second trial or whatever.
Oh my
but
God.
Hi, sis Maggie. Now she is accused number 7, and she's not accused separately. The charge sheet is clear. Murder.
Yeah. No, it's hectic. I mean, she's basically been roped in just for being a nosy neighbor. That's all it is.
Dude.
Right?
Papa. Now it's going to be in the dock.
Yeah. But isn't there, in every soap opera, there's always one character who's exactly like that woman? There's always one character in every soap opera who's like the neighborhood gossip. She's the person who sticks her nose into other people's business. She's the person who gets involved in everyone else's stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
During
lockdown,
these people were very important, and they got high on the power. They were suddenly, because they could report on their neighbors or whatever. We started calling them Karens, but it applies here. We should really call them Sis Maggie.
Yo, Sis Maggie.
Good. Just as
Sis
good.
Maggie. It's and now here you are, like trending on Twitter. Accused number 7. Part of all of this. I was just like, Sis Maggie. All for what? All for what?
Yeah. That's absolutely right. Some people just mind your own business. There is no reason for you to get involved in other people's stuff. Be all chacharach. Just stay out. No one asked you, right? No one asked.
Sometimes it's okay to be on the periphery.
It's related in some way to the Rachadis, who will stand up at the funeral and talk shit when no one asked them to. There seem to be a bunch of people who carry around a whole lot of stuff that they think is their stuff, but it's actually probably someone else's stuff.
You see, because on the face of it,
persuaded very easily to part with that information.
Yeah, on the face of it, I can see how she was just like, this doesn't look good. If somebody walks in here and sees all these beer bottles, and it's not going to look good for anyone. So if we just tidy up just a little bit. But I'm just like, look, there is blood on the floor, check. There is just leave it alone. She's the person that came and tidied everything up and got rid of the beer bottles, got rid of evidence.
Absolutely. So I want to talk a little bit about this Icasa thing, but maybe we'll save it for the Burning Platform, because Icasa is a parastatal, effectively. It's a controlling body for communications, and they also decide where to allocate spectrum and all the rest of it. An interesting story, because, as Pumi wants to discuss, the reason that the current chairperson has decided to leave the job is because he found it innovating. What do we make of that? What word is that? Innovating, right? This is what we're trying to figure out. So all of that and more is coming up in the next hour. I think Pumi's frozen there for some reason on the screen. I'll see if I can get her back just in time for the Burning Platform, which is coming up in the next hour. We'd also like to hear from you. Maybe you've got something to say, and we want to hear what your thoughts are on all the stories that are in the news at the moment. Gary says sarcastically, are we now going to rename all our streets after Senzo? Well, do you remember how much trouble I got into when I said, why are we having this massive funeral for this guy? And it was in the days when Twitter was really frothing at the mouth. So I don't know, Gary, but I don't think so. A lot of people talking about Sis Maggie. Lots of people really into her and that story that you brought up. She was just practicing love thy neighbor. Someone should have told her no good deed goes unpunished. Yeah, that's also the best moment is when one advocate said, Judge, I don't know the legal term, but how do you say this is fucked up? Yeah, we played that
fucked up situation.
We played that clip the other day. And you know,
that advocate, Congo Chris, is Advocate Defo.
That's Defo,
Advocate Defo.
He's the same guy who was arrested in court. First time that's ever happened. Yo. Unbelievable. All right, so let's take a quick break. We'll be back with the Burning Platform next. Stick around, cliffcentral.com. It is Thursday morning. It's already the 9th of June if you're watching the clock and you're checking the calendar and you're wondering how much more can I do in this year? Because it's coming to an end before you even know it. Like we're almost halfway through it already.
This week on the Auto Trader podcast, Instant Offer is another creative car buying service, if you want to call it, right? Yeah. But we've done it right. We've taken about 2 years to build this thing
for the consumer specifically.
For the consumer in mind. With the consumer in mind, yes. Yeah. But still, the consumer's not going to get retail values out of Instant Offer because the speed is there. You can literally sell your car in the same day. Catch us every Monday at 9 a.m. on YouTube and on autotrader.co.za.
It is time for another Burning Platform on cliffcentral.com. We are here, we are live, and we're ready to take you into the morning, discuss some of the most important things that are going on in society, in the economy, in politics, and in current affairs, the stories that matter to you. We've got two guests joining us this morning. Lethiwe Sinodumo Nkosi, who is Youth Capital's network mobilizer. She is a storyteller whose mission it is to amplify voices. She obtained her BA undergraduate degree and a master's in philosophy in African Studies from the University of Cape Town. Youth Capital is a youth-led advocacy campaign to reduce youth unemployment. And if there's ever a cause that we need to get behind, it is youth unemployment. Right, Pumi?
And Youth Capital is one of the accounts I follow on
Absolutely.
Twitter. I'm so happy she's going to be here.
Well, Lethiwe, you see, we're already excited to talk to you, and we haven't even said anything to you yet. Nice to have you
I'm
on the show.
loving it. Thank you so much for having me.
What a pleasure. It's great to have you. All right, let's also talk to Zimasa. And we're going to talk to Zimasa Vabaza, who also wants to tell us about the township economy, which is something which I think we're all interested in, but we don't always know where the best sources of information might be. Also, we're going to look at small businesses in South Africa. And Zimasa, it's very good to have you on the show this morning. How are you doing?
I'm awesome, Gareth. How are you?
Very, very good. We got a bunch of things to talk to you guys about. Where should we begin? Maybe let's talk about some of the things that people think the youth of South Africa are and that think the youth of South Africa want, where they actually might be wrong. And I'll let you start with this, Lethiwe, because there are lots and lots of misconceptions out there. You know, young people are lazy, young people are entitled, young people want this and want that, and they think everything's easy. And you hear a lot of Gen X's and older people saying, oh, well, I wanted to give the Gen Z guy a chance, but he wanted to be CEO.
He wants the corner office.
So
and wants to knock off at 5.
Yeah, what are these misconceptions, and what do you get most annoyed with hearing, especially in the media? We know the media play a huge role in misrepresenting and sometimes just talking about these things because they feel they have to. They pay lip service to it, but they don't really care about this.
I mean, you pointed a very prevalent one, which is the idea that young people are lazy, that they're not willing to work. And that's a misconception, because what work looks like for young people, it may not be the same as former generations. You know, we're seeing how the world of work is evolving, and young people are very much interested in that evolution. They're very much interested in innovating and really reconfiguring what work looks like. So to simply say young people are lazy is short-sightedness, in my opinion. Another misconception that I've seen and heard is, young people need to be seen, not heard. There's almost like a tokenistic opinion that people have when it comes to young people. So their voices are not given enough airtime. It's like, just come and say one or two things, but they're not given the chance to shape solutions, drawing from their experience. And from my interactions with young people, hearing their lived experience, I've heard them point at what solutions are needed. You know, when we talk, for example, when we talk about the issue of youth unemployment, one hurdle that young people face is the cost of looking for work. And when I speak to young people about that challenge and they share their experience, one of the solutions that the experience points to is that opportunity should be closer to young people. So instead of a young person having to catch 2 taxis to go and find an opportunity, opportunities should actually exist close to where they stay. So, just like giving young people enough voice so that they can share their experience and the solutions that are embedded in their experience is one of the misconceptions that I've seen, and it's actually it's sad. It puts us it puts us in a very disadvantageous position.
I hear a lot of this, and it makes me think that some of the conversations sound very academic, and they don't sound very realistic. I mean, we're talking about how things should, could, would, almost like there's a utopian ideal we're working towards in a country where the realities are just goddamned impossible. Like the cost of fuel, the cost of transport as a result of the cost of fuel. You say opportunities should exist closer to people, but I mean, the real opportunities exist in the cities. There aren't a lot of opportunities in rural areas. There aren't a lot of opportunities in far-flung parts of the country. And this is also why I'm thrilled to have Zimasa with us this morning, because when we talk about the township economy, We're not talking about some disorganized, tangled mess like it might have been 20, 30 years ago. We're talking about a very efficient machine for finding value. People's money is stretched super thin. People are looking for products from all over the world. They're looking for very particular things. Pumi was saying at the beginning of the show, and we made a bit of a joke about it, but that she took her phone to be fixed at the Oriental Plaza by a guy called Bilal. And this guy managed to get everything working, water damage, turned the other way around. She got her phone back. It worked. She got all of her pictures that she thought she'd lost. These are the kind of people who bring in skills. And of course, Bilal's not from here. He's from Zimbabwe.
Look, and Bilal, this is the thing about Bilal, is he also told me, because I asked him, where did you learn how to do this? And he said, right here in South Africa.
Yeah.
So
But
he didn't come with the skill.
But people
He
will
learned
say,
it here.
we know xenophobic people will say, Pumi, that he's basically taking someone else's job, even though he performed a service for you, which you and I agreed you'd pay 20 times what he charged you to have done. So there are interesting people doing interesting things all over the place. And really, Zimasa, based on what you heard Lethiwe say, what are your thoughts on the township economies and the small businesses that people are creating?
I think what was quite interesting for me is that when I sort of kind of started doing a little bit of my desktop research, I started realizing, firstly, how big it is, right, from a macroeconomic perspective. And actually, no one actually has the correct numbers. It's all just educated guesses. Now, that starts becoming a bit of an issue in terms of how do we go in and start assisting it. And from some of the stuff that I started posting on the socials and on like TikTok and stuff like that, a lot of people started responding. And what I found quite weird around South Africans was how a lot of the comments were around the fact that, but it's not taxed. And I found that to be a very sort of middle class looking down on the township economy / informal economy. And for me, that was kind of weird, because I think that it also comes back to a lot of education around sort of like economics and how the country actually works and what it'll actually take. Yes, at a very high level, everyone disagrees around how do we get things done, but the people at the bottom don't necessarily need more ideas, they need action. So
also,
you've got
who are these people who are so worried about tax? I mean, Jesus, don't the government really? I mean, everybody's paying VAT. A lot of people are paying a huge amount of personal income tax. We pay company tax. We pay for using the roads with e-tolls. We pay a fuel levy. We're being taxed to the nth degree, no matter who we are in South Africa. Who are these people who are so worried about tax in the township economy?
So
why should we listen to them?
I think, Gareth, it's more around people that believe that the township economy is getting a free ride. And what they actually don't understand is that in terms of capital output for anybody in the township who's trying to start a business, it's actually a higher percentage of their net worth than somebody who's in the middle class or in the upper classes. So these are people that are taking a bigger risk relative to their net worth than anybody else within the old way or LSMs. And a lot of those people are actually using that on a day-to-day basis. A simple example, let's say there's a lady who's selling amagwinya, like fed cooks, and she literally will make decent cash. And most people who are from, let's say, middle class and upper class, they'll say, why doesn't she scale her business? And I'm like, but you realize like how much of the capital that she uses to actually get the business started, she has to put back in today still to try and get sort of like the ingredients to make it for tomorrow. This isn't about like people not working hard enough. That lady will wake up at 3 o'clock to be ready to start serving the taxi drivers and people going off to work before anybody else. So I think the question is, what mechanisms can we start putting in for people to actually grow? And these aren't even sort of grants. People want like 50,000 Rand and above, and 100,000 Rand for small business grants, when the people that need to be supported, whether through voucher systems, knowing that if you're in a food or a catering business as a lady who makes food in food trailers for general public going to work or whatever, you know that there's a way that you can open up ways of, whether that's small credit, like that 200 Rand from like a Pick and Pay. That's how the formalized economy can actually support those people and start, for their wins, start channeling everybody who either makes vetkoeks, who makes those food trailer plates that cost $50 and are shared by construction workers. That's how we kind of start. And then by helping those people, you will then have formalized it, and then you'll be able to kind of track and say, okay, this is what's actually happening. This is a quantum of what's happening in the township economy. And then from there, we can say, how do we assist it? And then ultimately, how do we include it in the overall sort of GDP calculations and projections that the country has? Because if you've got something as sizable as supposedly 300 billion rand every year being produced in the township, you've got to start finding ways of including that in our sort of metrics of how we want to grow as a country. And the other issue is that we don't have an economic plan as a South Africa. Nobody can tell me that this is our strategy. Nobody can tell me that this was a strategy. Government has all these plans, but I want to know what is the actual strategy for the economy, just the economy, and what are the steps we want to take?
Pums, where do you want to go with this? Because we want to cover as much ground as possible this morning. I mean, so there's a lot to talk about here.
But I'm extremely interested in the solutions. So yeah, there's no plan, there's no scaling, there is lots of complaining. But from the experience that you have and what you see, what are the solutions that nobody else is seeing? Share that with us.
I think one of the things I was actually thinking about, right? And this is something that obviously is somewhere in the works in the back of my mind. The first thing is a repository of free business startup documents that anybody can use. Like, I think that's, everyone kind of looks away from that. I've got a friend who's currently applying for funding from, I think it's NEF or SIFA, and they're looking to start a fish and chip company, right? They're like a fish and chip franchise. And the hardest thing, it was easier for him, right? Because of, I'd say, you wouldn't say he's previously disadvantaged. He's a black guy, but his dad is a high up, etc., etc. But he found it quite hard to get a lot of the stuff put together. For something as simple as saying, here's a really great opportunity, Esganga in KZN, Northern KZN, where they don't have this particular shop. It's a fish and chip company. He found the people, he's spoken to them. Now he needs to put together the documents to send to Fish and Chip Co. or King Pie or whatever. It was actually so tough, for considering that he needed so much assistance from people relative to him getting this thing right. And obviously the company's got to have its checks and balances. SIFA's got to have checks and balances, because they can't just give people anything willy-nilly. But at the end of all of this, he actually got to a point where he had been approved by SIFA, and then the company said, no, you need to have 200,000 Rand of your own money. And I was stunned, because he's fully funded. He's passed everything. And that was that's a middle-class guy, or upper middle-class guy, who's actually received funding or approval for funding, pre-approval, and he still couldn't actually get the business over the line because of how structurally everything is. So the first thing I would say is, you want to create, whether that's a parallel structure for micro businesses that actually works. And now what that means is that if somebody wants to get into a particular business, you've got to start incentivizing those particular businesses, and you've got to start you've got to almost structurally force. So for instance, everyone says tuck shops or sponsor shops. The reason why
I don't agree with this idea that you need to incentivize business. Business is about the incentive of profit. You don't need to incentivize anything. It's not like they need extra motivation. They need Tony Robbins hopping on their Microsoft Teams meetings saying, guys, you need an incentive to be in business. You're in business because A, you need to survive, and B, you want to make a profit. Those are enough incentives, don't you think?
Maybe I'm saying incentive wrong. Maybe I'm saying we need to oil the engine a lot more so that it's quicker to get it up the hill.
I have something different though. I have a different view on that, right?
Okay.
So the truth is that it's not being done, and it's not going to get done. In order to make that kind of a change, you need to be in a position of power, right? You need to be in government, you need to be in the department, that's what you need. And we know that those guys don't care. We know that. We are here. So there's no point in kind of bitching about that. Is in this environment that we are in, how do we play through this environment to score the goals, to win? I think one of the things that I find it is quite fascinating to experience and watch is how easy it is to kind of go, they don't do this, we don't have a plan, they, right? As I'm kind of going, okay, so in this environment, great idea, maybe we need a repository that's got access to all of these documents for young people to get going. There's an opportunity for you and what you do to create that repository. So outside of somebody over there in government or whatever needs to do that, there's an opportunity to do what you do. And this is, one of the things that I really appreciate when I see the work that Youth Capital is doing as well, is over and above the research, is kind of also giving resource and opportunity to young people. But you've got to know where to look. Right?
Yeah.
And one of the things that, okay.
Sorry, I just want to bring Lethiwe in, and she's gone all the way to the studio, and she's so far said the least. Go ahead.
Oh no, I just I want to just share a few comments on what has been shared thus far. To Zimasa's point about how we can support players in the informal sector. I think and also to your point as well, Pumi, about what can we do now and not point fingers at the powers that be and what they need to do for us. I think in finding solutions, I will stress this throughout our conversation. It's important to involve those that are that we're trying to support in them shaping what kind of support they need. So even with Umama Tengisa Magwenya, what support does she need to grow her business, and what does growth look for her? And when we figure that out, then we can support her accordingly. If growth looks like her working with a group of other women at a taxi rank, so from North to Brie, having other women supporting her in her business. If that's what growth looks like for her, then as the general public, we can channel our resources, our efforts in making sure that we're able to achieve her idea of what growth looks like.
But
so
can I just say at this point, like, you support her by buying her stuff. That there's this idea that, like, someone needs to come in and hold her hand or give her cash, or the fact is, if she's selling something of value, the support that you give her is by supporting her business. And I would rather do that in many cases than go to the supermarket and buy straight from them. Right?
Exactly. Yeah, absolutely. And that's what I'm saying. Like, if her idea of growth, I mean, I've just painted a picture of her maybe wanting to almost franchise her business, where she has other women selling amagwenya in other taxi ranks. But that might not be the case for her. It's just about increasing a customer base, and so therefore we can just simply support her business by buying from her.
I want to talk a little bit more about young people and what some of us older people, Lethiwe, you said
you're not that old, Pumi.
Trust me, I am. Trust me, I am. I feel it every day. I myself, and what was that word, Gareth? Innovate.
Innovating.
I myself have innovated. But no, truly, we have a project that we're working on. And on Monday, why I was in KZN is it was the initiation of the construction part of this project. And we have brought on board 10 young people from this village that we're working with that are going to be part of the construction team, and they're going to get trained up. None of them have ever worked a day in their lives. They're in their 20s and have never worked a day in their lives. And on the first day, right, they were given ample time. This is the time to be there. This is when the construction foreman is going to be here to give the first instructions, get the uniform and the PPE, hana. And one of them doesn't show up. No, like, it's in their village. It's a walking distance from home. There's no transportation costs. There was nothing else other than the fact that when we said we needed 10 young people, they said, these are the 10 young people. We said, great, just show up on this day. No kind of, I can't be there on that day because I have to, whatever. Nothing, just doesn't show up. And it was fascinating for me at that moment when I then decided that, okay, let's find somebody to replace her with. How all the other young people are like, let's give her a chance. I'm like, I don't have time for that, right? If on day one she cannot show up on time, at the appointed place, how can I trust that on day 15 she will arrive? And this is, these are the issues. I work with a lot of young people. These are the issues that we face, right? What is that? What's that lived experience about from your experience?
Listen, it's definitely layered. It's absolutely, I mean, there are many factors that can explain the reason for that young person not showing up
Or telling
on time.
anybody.
Or telling anybody, right? So I don't want to give a blanket response that, explains her behavior. But from my experience, looking for employment, and I'm going to say this with the caution, I don't want to make mental health
It's okay.
the
There's no right
scapegoat,
or wrong.
right? No, and I know
right
this,
or
but I'm not trying to say, many young people are discouraged to job seekers, and even when they find opportunities, by the time they find opportunities, there's a lot of challenges that they experience in terms of their mental health that makes them feel not confident to actually even go forth and seize the opportunity. So I say that I think that's partly why, but at the same time, as I said in the beginning, I'm not trying to make mental health challenges the scapegoat for why young people, conduct themselves in the way they do. But I think what would be best when offering my 2 cents is offering young people opportunities through an organization that they are a part of kind of mitigates that happening. And why I say that is because, especially if an organization provides a holistic program for the young person, teaching them about job readiness, how to conduct themselves in the world of work. Because also another thing to say is that many young people may come from households where they've not had good role models that have shown them on how to show up on time, and the value of doing that, and what that can do for you accessing future opportunities and giving you a good reference letter. So
we've become too soft. Have we become too soft? Have we
Can
become
I
too
come in?
soft?
on young people?
I actually have a very interesting sort of take as well. Look,
Sure.
for me, what I've realized is that my cousin, right, in the Eastern Cape, at Zimasa, he was part of a co-op that got funding from obviously the municipality to start a hydroponic tomato operation. Now, when it first started, he was obviously the one who was driving it, but because of sort of like the funding models, he had to be the person who kind of gets other people to come on board, because he was like, I've got this business plan, but they'll only give it to me if I'm part of a co-op. So, okay, he goes and finds people in the community, blah, blah, that's fine. He gets another like 4 people, because I think they need to be 5 in the co-op or whatever. They start the operation. Obviously, there's other things on the side. Government, they inflated the thing. It was 4 million funding, 2 million was for the actual sort of like project, and 2 million was used for like the celebrations of opening the project. But that's another story. Let's talk about the actual business. So they start the business. It runs for the first year. Now, these guys started producing around 2 tons of tomatoes per greenhouse per month. But it took some time for them to get there, maybe around 6 months. When they get to that volume, now 2 tons is a lot. It's like 4,000. It's like 4,000 kilograms per month, right? And now they're making a little bit of money, a little bit of chunk of change. Now they're going to sit in this co-op community, sort of like committee, and actually cut this thing up. And that's when you start realizing that people's priorities are also quite jaded. We don't want everyone to be an entrepreneur. We want the right people to be an entrepreneur. And it's only the ones that ultimately rise through the top through a testing, but like also frictionless, if that makes sense, process. Because when they suddenly got to the point where they're making money, they then could not actually allocate the capital and the revenue that was coming correctly in order to sustain the business, to buy a bucket, to buy all these things, because people were like, but like, let's pay ourselves. Let's like, we're making, like, we could pay ourselves like 15K each now, because we're making a decent amount of change. We're supplying the local pick and pay. We're supplying the local informal economies around 2 or 3 sort of villages and the township. So it's also at that scale where you have to understand that, yes, the mindset thing is there, but maybe the conversation is around how do we support the right people? And I know that's such an open-ended question, but how do we support the right people in the right way by also kind of limiting the amount of, like, I don't know, maybe it's
you know, guys. So I'm very
such a tough thing.
I am very excited to have
Yeah.
in studio with us people who work with this cohort of people all the time,
Yeah.
because I'm hoping that there are insights that you can share with us about what we get wrong and what we don't see. Yeah.
Mm.
I mean, I on social media see young people complain, and you spoke earlier, Leto, about mental health. I get that. But I also look back, and that's why I asked the question, have we become too soft?
Mm.
Because the reality is, and this is Zimasa, some of what you're talking about is really about the fact that there is no life experience. Among those 5 young people, there is no life experience. Therefore, they are unable to see on the other side of from where they are, right? They're unable to see it because there's just no life experience. They don't know that this is short-termism and all of that kind of stuff. But I think, when when I had my first real job after getting my first degree, my boss she taught me how to make her coffee, right? And she said, you have to bring a notebook with you because you must take notes of all the things that you see and learn that I knew and whatever. Y'all, I tell you, I made coffee for that woman every day for a good month and took notes and did nothing else. Asked questions, but made coffee. And her view, and I get it, and I appreciate it, was, if I cannot trust you to make me a good cup of coffee once a day in the morning, how can I trust you with any bigger responsibility? I get that, right? Do that to a young person today. What? They will not show up for day 3 of that job because they're just like, it's not what I'm here for.
And guys, Pumi and I are both small business owners, and it's hard being a small business owner. And you were saying things about the middle class earlier, Zimasa, and I know what you mean. What you mean is that our economy isn't fair, and it isn't a place of equity. It's never going to be. I mean, that's all.
The
Like
world's not fair.
The world's not fair. Where? I always say to people, where, when they complain about this stuff, because nobody's interested in someone's pain or someone's hard life, or everybody. If you sit down and talk to them long enough, they've got a sick gran, or they've got some problem with their teeth, or they've got a sore back, or they've never really had the clothes that they've always wanted, or even more serious problems than those. Everybody's got problems. The fact is, I don't want to hear, and nobody in business is interested in hearing someone's sub story. We've had so many reasons in this country to blame government, to blame our parents, to blame resources, the lack of resources, inequality, all of these things. In essence, though, business is about, I'm going to give you something. If it's valuable to you, you'll pay me, whether it's a service or a product. And in return, you have to either give me the money that I demand, or I will sell it to someone else. It's all a very voluntary occupation. It's all the basic idea of the free market. And this is how it works. So when, with all the love in the world, Lethiwe, when you're talking about like mental health and how young people are having a tough time, no one in business gives a shit. They'd rather hire someone who doesn't have mental health issues, because then they can make their business more efficient. That's just an ugly truth. It's the way that the world's always worked. If you need soldiers for war, you don't go to the place where people are crying and they're unhappy and they're weak and they haven't done any physical exercise. You draw them from the places where they are strong, they have physical exercise, they're able to wield a weapon. That's how it's always worked. And unfortunately, there are going to be people left behind. And if the excuse is, well, I didn't have anything when I was growing up, or I've got mental health issues, all of that's valid. And I hear you. But businesses are not therapists, and businesses are not social workers, and businesses are not replacement mothers and fathers.
Yeah. No, and I completely understand where you're coming from, Gareth, that business is in the business of generating profit, and so the time to mentor a young person or to handhold a young person they may not have. And I get where you're coming from when you say that. And so in my mind, as you say that, I think what it points to then is, what role do existing organizations, and I saw one of the viewers make a point about the fact that there's so many programs, and maybe we need to evaluate that and say, are we duplicating programs, and if so, can we re-examine that? But I think there needs to be programs then that equip young people and ensure that they are ready for the world of work, so that by the time they work for Gareth or Pumi, they are ready to do what they are required to do.
But what does that mean? What is practically? What does it mean? Ensure they are ready for the world of work. We all work, and we all came through the school system as it currently is, and got through whatever degrees. And Gareth and I are both lucky in that we had the higher education to be able to get degrees and all of that.
Well, I never got mine, but
what does that even mean? Like, ensure that they're ready. This is why I'm saying, have we become soft? Is because the school system is the school system.
I mean, I don't want to sound like you and I are the old people here, but we are. Okay, so the reality is, we're going to sit here and say, no one's ready for the world of work. Work is damn difficult. No one wants to do it. That's why it's called work. Otherwise, it'd be called fun. And no one wants to be the CEO, because you have to take all the risks. You have to decide, I'm going to take my own money, put it into this thing. Hopefully it works. None of the staff are going to take that risk. They're going to get paid. But as a result of me taking the risk, I will reap the most reward from it. And if we all do well, obviously, then everyone will get profit share and the company will grow, blah, blah, blah. And there'll be more opportunities. But I don't like this idea that you need to be ready for work. I mean, adolescence, people used to start working at 12 years old. And in some households, they do already. There are places in rural South Africa, you guys all know this, where the granny is running everything because the parents may not be there. They may have died. They may have been working outside of where they grew up. There are lots of those social pressures that we have to deal with. But some of those kids are growing the vegetables. They're doing the household chores. They are looking after the livestock. They're looking after their younger siblings. That's work. And if they can do it at 6, 12, 15 years old, what the hell is a 25-year-old still doing sitting on their hands?
I'll take it as a rhetorical statement.
Yeah, it is. I think what I'm also sensing from some of the comments is that someone was like, South Africa's a nanny state, and obviously we don't want to baby people. We want to enable people. So maybe our definition of what it means to assist the economy is too broad, and we actually need action items to say, okay, what we're doing is that this is, for instance, right? There was, what really made me angry was the conversation around sort of like black industrialists and how they were going to be funded, blah, 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 and all this other stuff. And it was such rhetoric that I got to a point where I was like, oh, hold on. I was maybe a little bit starting to drink the Kool-Aid. Then I took a step back and I said, wait, sorry, what does this actually mean? And who's going to look after it? And what are the KPIs? And how do we measure success? Like, no one actually ever asked that. Like, how are we going to measure the success? Are we saying we're going to grow 50 million Rand a year revenue businesses to 500 million over the next 5 years? But how are we going to support them? Does that make sense? How? And also, I tend to also become a little bit sort of like antagonistic when it comes to bureaucracy. I have a very sort of like contrarian view that we need less government, but we need government in the right places to offer things like protections into certain industries, like what they've done for the chicken industry and stuff like that. And obviously there's a lot of pushback because a lot of people make a lot of money from bringing stuff into the country, and we're happy for them, yay. But there's certain things that a country should be able to produce on its own. And those things should be what government brings in. If we have a shortage of sort of like nutrients for people that are chicken farmers, that's what government should be bringing in bulk, in its ways, whether it's using sort of state-owned enterprises or whatever. And then people should be buying from government less tax so that we can have our own chickens. There are people that have the right jobs, and they're not doing the work that they should be doing, which is to look after the macroeconomics so that people that are in the small business space can actually work a little bit better to provide the things that we need without us having to look outside. And
Zimasa, I'm going to say this.
Wrong with that model right now.
Zimasa, this is one of my favorite things to say. You're new on the show, so you're hearing it for the first time. Phuma kula bantu. Okay? I think one of the things that as we have done, all of us as South Africans, is relegated our power to all of these people. Phumani kulabantu. We started out and you were talking to us about township economies, right? And that right there is a market for people, right? And once upon a time, long ago, my parents used to sell chickens. My mom's afraid of chickens. I had to be the person catching the chickens for the people. You know what I'm saying? But the thing is, there was a time, and at the risk of sounding like separate development, right? But we are now at a place where we are clear we're on our own as small businesses, as individuals, and really and truly, the help is not coming from somewhere out there. And so it's looking at these ecosystems in the environments that we are in and saying, how do we make this happen? How do we make this work? The guy selling chickens or imbuzi at the side of the corner is not getting nutrients for that mbuzi from somebody in the department of Ntonton, right? And yet there is an ecosystem working. And for me, I really hope and wish that there is a way in the organizations that you are in that we can plug young people into that understanding. The help's not coming, guys. Young people need to recognize and realize that nobody is out here interested in empowering them. Nobody is out here interested in listening to their needs and therefore responding appropriately to those. Nobody's doing that. Who's doing that? Cyril and his red tape guy. Cyril and his red tape guy. The man's got 64 million rands in his bedroom under his bed. He is not. It's not listening.
So here's an interesting thing, Pumi. Sorry, I just want to also add something that I want you to maybe to get your input on. So I have a really weird association with sort of the basic income grants and how they clash with the idea of a minimum wage and general labor laws in this country relative to remuneration of workers. We're saying that we, as a country, you can't pay somebody below a certain wage. Sure, people don't have jobs, but you're paying them almost 10 times less than what the minimum wage is. I don't know where it stands out. I think it's like 3,500 rand. But you're paying them 10 times less to be like, okay, Bamba Yiso, just get to next month, got 350. But if somebody said, I want to actually employ 10 people at, I don't know, 2,000 rand to do basic work, we would then say to ourselves, okay, cool, but that's not ethical. Society would say that's not ethical. But at the same time, we're complaining as the middle class about people that are getting paid 350. We're like, but they don't do anything.
I am really impressed that there are people doing what the two of you are doing. And I also understand Pumi's frustration with kind of how things work. But the basic economics, and again, we don't have too much of an understanding of this in South Africa because we're so busy teaching people stuff they don't need to know in basic education and in tertiary education. And I can see, in this case, Lethiwe is looking at me like, where are we going with this? But here's the thing. Like economics.
No, I'm agreeing with you, Gareth. There's a mismatch in what is being taught and what.
Absolutely. But even if you didn't agree with me, that would still be fine. The fact is, the economy is a very complicated machine. The free market is the most complicated computer we have ever built. You put in things on this side, and people on the other side will buy those things if the price is right. And every person in the economy helps decide what that price is. You cannot top down make this thing work. You cannot create policies to make this thing work. The more you leave it alone, and this is where I think, Zimasa and I are probably going to agree the most, the more you leave that alone for people to do it, and this is what we've learned from the township economy, if nothing else, is that people will find a way, and people have a survival instinct, and people are naturally entrepreneurial, not because they have great ideas and they know how they can get hold of Elon Musk on their phone. It's because they need to survive from day to day. And they realize, I can do this. I can cut grass. I can make food. I can wash cars. I can clean someone else's house for them. I can do whatever it is that I can fill a gap in the economy for that someone will be prepared to pay me for. And I can be the best at that so I can earn the most money for it. And it's not glamorous. The economy is not a glamorous thing. It's basically down to survival for most people. But it's a great system. It works because everyone has got an input and everyone gets an output if it works properly. The only thing that gets in the way is government, policies, and a lot of the stuff that we've been talking about that is on the outside of the economy. Basically, it's service provision. Me and you. We don't need a whole lot more.
I have another take on it, right? And it's one of the, I think it's one of the points that I'd sent through. There's a glass ceiling for people to kind of like, for young people to get into positions of real influence. And I think one of the things
experience.
Yes, but now we're using that said experience as a barrier for people. For instance, whether it was a Trevor Manuel or a Tito Mboweni or a Lindiwe Sisulu at 40 years old getting a position of influence, they now see a 40-year-old who has worked in corporate South Africa from the age of 25, 15 years experience, as somebody who's still got to wait to be a DDG or a DG. So you still got to wait, but you got 15 years of corporate experience. You've shown that you can do it. Now, maybe that's human nature. Maybe that's protectionism. Maybe that's internally looking at yourself to say, I've got to make, I as the person, have got to keep everyone at bay. We've got young people complaining about certain babas and mamas who work at Home Affairs who can't even send WhatsApps, and they'll tell you the system was offline when it's actually working because they don't want to work, right? And this is where we've arrived at. Maybe it's very Soviet Union-y of us right now that we want to keep people in jobs that are actually not as effective. Government has shown consistently that they are a terrible allocator of resources, yet we still purposefully kind of like, yes, look to them, but kind of go with cap in hand to them for a lot of stuff. And I agree with you, Pumi. Like, it's such a conundrum to say we need your help, but yes, it's also you're a terrible person, because technically government is the formation of who we think should be leading us as a people. And if we keep kind of like voting for the same inept people, we're going to get the same result. And it's so frustrating because I've started multiple businesses, right?
Steve, we go ahead a term for that.
Yeah.
Steve, we go ahead a term for that. It's called acquired self-helplessness.
Hectic.
Yeah.
Because we actually go and find it ourselves. And it's so tricky, but this is where we find ourselves. I've bootstrapped a lot of companies, 3 or 4 companies, and most of the time I could have easily decided I wanted to do the shiny thing, and maybe I did, going into sort of like digital marketing, etc., and all of those type of things. But at the time when I started, which was 2012, 2013, nobody was doing it, so we had to chart a new way. Now I sit back and I say, okay, cool. Now we found an economy, the marketing digital economy around sort of like influencing as a platform, etc., has now kind of matured. Now we've got to look for the next thing. And I decided for me in my life that I wanted to go back to the Eastern Cape, right? Because I acquired enough services and experience in Joburg. I want to go back to Eastern Cape and do farming, literally, and buy actual land and start farming chickens, pigs, cabbages, because I started realizing and doing the numbers behind it. And I said, if people aren't doing this thing correctly, there's actual millions in this thing as a small scale farmer. Yes, obviously, every business has downsides, but when you look at it on the balance of probabilities, you're actually better off having this piece of, or this asset, because a lot of people have kind of like my age, which is like around 35, have encumbered themselves long term. They've bought houses in Joburg, Cape Town, Durban, and they've basically said, I'm signing a contract.
Young people are the Zimasa.
Zimasa, but okay, so that's, now you're talking about action, right? You're talking about, you sat down, you thought about something, you came up with a plan and acting on it, right? Which is, I think, a good place to say, Lethiwe, you talked to us, and some of the things that you wanted to talk to us about was an action plan, a youth capital action plan. Share a little bit of that with us. What is that action plan? What are the things that must be done?
So okay, sorry.
Yeah. Lethiwe, you go.
So Youth Capital's action plan really charts the journey of a young person from when they're still in education, and it charts the roadblocks that they face along the path from learning to earning, and it points out what action needs to be taken to remove those roadblocks. So for instance, when it comes to education, we need to make sure that young people are certified, because we know that a certificate is important for a young person to signal to an employer that they are employable. Earlier we talked about finding the right person for the job, and having a certificate can be one indicator that you are the right person for the job. And then another roadblock.
Hold up, certified meaning what? Like go to the post
No.
police
Okay,
station
sorry.
and get a
Sorry.
yeah.
I thank you for asking me to clarify. So when we're talking about an actual certificate, so being certified in the sense that you have obtained a certificate that says you have
Credentials.
Credentials, yeah. So
Yeah.
you have a
Okay, so
qualification
that is the
that
parent's
says
job.
no.
And it
So
is the young person's job to make
say,
sure
yeah,
that you go to school and
school
get an
and get
education.
it,
That's
and
the
then
young
also
person's job.
that's the young person, but also those in their support system can support them in ensuring that they do get the certificate. Not hand-holding, not being too soft on them, but reminding them of the importance of getting a certificate. And then
Okay.
also another call to action in the action plan looks at the need to reduce the cost of living. And I know that, in the world that we live in, it's not an utopian world, and we need to be realistic about what we strive to achieve. But there are little things that we can do to reduce the cost of looking for work. And so under the call to action, make job seeking affordable, we are saying that other means can be used for young people to be recruited. For instance, WhatsApp can be used. WhatsApp bots can be used for a young person to submit their CV, as opposed to needing to catch a taxi, print a CV, and submit it.
Well,
And then also. And then the last part of the action plan, sorry, Gareth, the last part of the action plan looks at how can opportunities, the few that do exist, act as stepping stones for young people, and also how can we make the experience young people gain from those opportunities meaningful experience that can help them access future opportunities. You're about to say something, Gareth?
No, I wanted you to just explain, because Youth Capital is doing a documentary on Youth Day, and I wanted you to just give a plug to this, because I think there may be many
Absolutely.
people who are interested in this. And then I do want us to just touch on a few other subjects that are going on
Yeah.
at the moment in politics. I mean, we don't want to just talk youth unemployment for the whole hour, much as it deserves
Absolutely.
more than that. So tell me about the documentary, and then we can bring in some other things.
Absolutely. So the documentary is titled I've Been Trying 8 Years Without a Job, and it follows a couple of young people who share their experience of looking for work, what challenges they've experienced, and what solutions they believe are needed to address those challenges. We will be launching the documentary next week, Thursday. There's an online launch. If you go onto our Twitter account, Youth Capital SA, you'll find the link to register. The online launch will happen between 5 and 6 p.m.
Excellent stuff. I mean, that's a real achievement, and congratulations for doing that. It must
Thank
have been
you.
hard work following these people for that long, especially because they couldn't find any hard work, and it's very, very difficult to show the stories of what people are actually going through if you don't get into
Absolutely.
their own shoes. All right, so ladies and gents, let's just talk for a moment about some of the things going on. Should we be interested in Cyril's millions that he had on his game farm, or is this a distraction from the RET element in the ANC? I think everybody wants to know, because now suddenly he's being asked to account for himself in Parliament. Suddenly there are people at the National Prosecuting Authority and the Public Protector talking about what they should do about him. What do we feel is going on here? I know, Zimasa, you keep on top of these things. What's your opinion?
I think both angles can be correct at the same time. I think that there's obviously a chain of events that we need to understand are going to start materializing this year because of the ANC election at the end of the year. So obviously they've started sort of politicking, right? They've started maneuvering things, but at the same time, I think we need to just be sure. If you're saying, okay, cool, this was game revenue, etc., prove it to us, right? But also, yeah, we do know that the big four accounting firms are a bit tricky. But at the end of the day, we need to be sure that somebody of that holds that office is somebody who we can feel comfortable and trust. So both things, Gareth, can be true at the exact same time. That we need to be. It is a distraction, right? But at the same time, we do need to find out what exactly happened. So, and also we understand the person that brought these things up has their own motive, but at the same time, we in access to information is South Africa can't keep any secrets. There's not even the SSA can keep secrets. So the fact that we're hearing about this is not a surprise. But what we should know is that I'm not sure if it's in the next coming weeks or so that the final thing state capture report is coming out, and that's going to be quite interesting for everybody. So this could be sort of like a way to preempt that, if I may say that.
Yeah, and I think you're absolutely right about the politicking. No one's going to disagree about that. Anything you want to add to this, Lethiwe? I know it's not really something that you might be as interested in, but this is stuff that affects us all, right?
I think as young people, we're definitely interested in. Someone once said that all issues in South Africa pertain to young people because our population constitutes
It's young.
of young people. So such matters do matter to us. And I agree with what Zimasa has just said, that both points are true, that it can be distraction, but at the same time, we need to know the truth. And so as young people, accountability is key for us. No one is exempt, not even our president. And so we are keen to hear the truth of the matter and see what actions are taken to address, to really ensure that no one kind of is given a pass for not doing the right thing. So if he is found guilty, the truth surfaces and it points to him being guilty and needing to take action, then so be it, because as young people we expect that of him.
And Pumi, the media has been giving Cyril free pass for how long now? Can they ignore this?
Did you see Shapiro's cartoon yesterday? I think yesterday or the day before, with Arthur Fraser standing against a very big closet full of skeletons, with the big sign that says Arthur Fraser skeletons, and he's got his back against it, and he's trying to keep those skeletons in the wall, in the closet, and in front of him is a little chest. And he's opened the chest and it's got a little skeleton crawling out, and he's like shooing it. And in the background over there, far away, is Cyril Ramaphosa sitting at his desk, and he's shooing the skeleton to say, "Go to daddy, go to daddy." It's a fantastic little cartoon, but it is also, and another way in which we're kind of very subtly giving Cyril a free pass in that particular medium. Right.
We love whataboutism in this country. We if we like Cyril, like most of the people at News 24 or in most of the media outlets like Cyril, then you make excuses for him. You go, he may have skeletons and he may have all these millions in dollars that are stuck in a safe in his farm in Limpopo, but at least he doesn't have all of the things that Arthur Fraser has, or that for example.
There's an adage that we use in marketing and advertising about research. That research is like a lamppost. You can use it in one of two ways: as a drug to steady yourself on it, or you can use it to illuminate around you. And if I were to appropriate that slightly and say this information is exactly like that lamppost. We, the people of South Africa, can use it to steady ourselves and like hold on to it and be distracted and not fall over. Or we can use it as a light to illuminate what's around us and to see more clearly what we are dealing with. I've always said that the problem is not whether the ANC can recalibrate or it needs the right leader or what. The problem is the organization. It's not the person at the helm. It is the entire organization.
To add to your adage, Pumi, sometimes the drunk leans against the lamppost, sometimes it illuminates things, and sometimes people just pee against the lamppost. So which one in South Africa we do. So I want to ask our two guests, because I think that there are useful things that we can all share that may be able to help those who are either unemployed, who always get the short end of the stick, who always end up in the most offensive position of all, where nobody really cares about them. Unions don't represent unemployed people. The government doesn't care about them because very often they're the ones who don't go out and vote. Employers don't care because clearly they're not employing them. So they have nobody to represent them in conversations like this. Do either of you know of ways that this cost of living crisis, which is really what we're going through at the moment in South Africa, we know that the petrol price has gone through the roof. We know that Eskom is upping its rates again. We know that we have enormous need in this country and not nearly enough supply of all things. Are there things that you've picked up in your interactions with people, whether it's in business, in your case, Zimasa, or Lethiwe, through the organization that you run? Can you share with us things that you've learned about what people are dealing with and how they're managing to actually make it through the day while all of these things seem arraigned against them?
I think I'll start. I think what's always been very sort of harsh but surprising for many people to looking into sort of South Africans or the lower rungs of South Africa is how people have survived on such little for so long. And and that in itself is crazy. We applaud people for like ingenuity and making the most out of nothing, but I think that that's also just crazy to me. I think what I've noticed is that a lot of people have started to cut away the really sort of like and I mean they're almost bare bone at the moment, but they started to cut away things that they don't necessarily need. So you realize that, or that not that they don't need, but things that they would deem at their level to be luxuries. So for instance, I travel across the country for various things, and what I've realized is that something as simple as eating out is relative to which province you're in and how people have started to scale back. Whereas now, because I'm always like close to taxi ranks, etc., I will go in and I'll maybe buy a plate or whatever just to kind of get there and speak to people. I've realized how even though that mama, that baba at the taxi rank who's selling, they're under such pressure because customers have less to spend. They're starting to haggle on really the bare minimum pricing that they've put up, and everyone is saying, but you understand that, for instance, like meat has gone up. You understand that all these things have gone up. So I think there's now a clash of consumer and producer or service provider that's happening, that's actually out of their control, both of their controls. Because if this guy, it works for a particular business A that's under pressure because that economy or that industry has gotten under pressure, he doesn't have enough money to pay the workers, etc. It's such a roll-on effect. So I think people don't have a choice but to eventually understand that this is beyond it's beyond their actual tangibility or
So
their.
you're talking about like things people have cut out. What about you, Lethiwe? I mean, your experience with the people you're speaking to, how do they make it through the day?
Honestly, by leaning on each other. I've seen young people rally for each other. We ran a survey last year around the cost of looking for work, and 70% of the young people who filled in the survey said that they have to make the choice between bread and buying data, right? And that choice is even more so now as the prices go up. And what I've then seen is, young people saying, okay, I can't make that choice. And so young person stepping in and saying, listen, I will, share my data with you. So I'll look for you. I'll look for work for you using the data that I have. So I've seen a lot of young people just leaning on each other to get through the tough times that we're faced with.
Sure. Yeah,
Maybe there's a mismatch.
What do you mean?
There's a mismatch in the jobs that people are looking for and the jobs that are available. What are you seeing relative to that?
So there's a desire from young people to then look for skill development programs that can provide them with the skills that are required in the market. So they do recognize that mismatch. So they're saying, okay, what skills, where can I do an online course that allows me to acquire the skills I need that are required in the market? And even there, young people have leaned on each other in terms of recommending what skill programs they can be a part of.
Yeah, Michael's bringing us back to order here. He says, I thought we were changing the subject. Well, Michael, I've got bad news for you. We have run out of time. But listen, I would love to have both of you again on the Burning Platform. I'll let Pumi have the last word, but Zimasa and Lethiwe, thank you for your
if anything, if I've learned anything from this conversation today, is that we're still stuck very much in an old way of thinking. We're trying to fit into what currently exists. And I think what we need new thinking. We need to think differently about the problems that we're facing. And we need new people giving us new ideas and being held up to that. Instead of trying to fit into what's there, instead of trying to get into a program that allows me to become a small-scale farmer as part of a co-op, we kind of need to go, how do we loose these shackles and think differently about where we are and think honestly about what we have and what we have access to and move from there. That's what I've learned from this discussion. So thank you very much for
very nice.
So thank you.
Thank you to both of our guests. Thank you to you for joining in the conversation. And I'm sorry we didn't get to all of the comments. There were lots of really, really good comments. I mean, some people saying straightforward, simple things like Michael saying, for example, the cost of communicating on these things needs to be a big part. If government really wants to make a difference, that's where they can make the difference. But obviously not nearly enough being done in that respect. And I do think South Africans are so resilient. You know, this is something that both of you, Zimasa and Lethiwe, you both referred to in this conversation. We're so resilient, but I wonder where the breaking point is. Because ultimately, when you have this many young people who are just desperate, they're desperate to find work, they're desperate to find purpose, they're desperate to eke out an existence to just survive through the day. Ultimately, there comes a breaking point where people just look at this and they go, you know what, better to burn it down than to continually be excluded from everything. And we hope that South Africa doesn't reach that point in a hurry. It's very good of you to give us some of your time this morning. We will have to pick this up with another one. And I promise you'll both be guests again if you'd like to come on the Burning
Love
platform.
to be back.
Thank you so much. Tell us your social media handle so people can follow you.
Yes, please give us your handles.
Oh,
that's a good idea.
Mine is across all socials. It's Mustafa, MOOSHTAFFA. That's across Twitter, Instagram.
You're the
TikTok,
Chelsea fan.
everything.
Yes. I've seen your profile, Zimasa. I'll start following you on Twitter.
Awesome.
Yours-
Please, and I'll
what
follow
about yours?
back.
And then when I let you
So I'll start off with Youth Capital. So across all platforms, it's Youth Capital SA, one word. And then on Twitter, I am Sino_Umbono.
Very good.
Awesome.
Thank you both. Very good, everybody. We will see you tomorrow at 6 a.m. bright and early. Have an excellent day in the company of cliffcentral.com and make sure that you check